I was convinced I was gonna die a virgin at 14 because I thought no girl would ever want to date a nerd like me, and also I was so far up the closet I might as well have ruled Narnia. But everything changed when I got my first girlfriend with 15. But we also broke up shortly after, but that opened the world of dating to me. Now don't be mistaken, I barely had any dates as a teenager, but if I did, they were bad. Dating as a teenager, in my opinion, is the absolute worst because I had no money, I had no experience, and I was awkward as hell, which makes for really bad dates, but really good stories. The Kimono Predator. I was only 16 back then, and I was at a club event of which my friend was the host of. This night is where an event called Nerd Alert was born, and they still hold it twice a year to this day. The theme of the whole night, just as the name suggests, was Nerd Life Realness. They had shots with nerdy references, people were casually cosplaying in the club, and it's really fun to just look around and spot all the nerdiness in the room. My friend got us some mana portions as soon as I sat down, and those mana portions were some sort of blue shots. It's been 7 years and I still remember it tasting like ass, but I drank them anyways. After a couple of those, I got a bit dizzy. I wasn't drunk or anything, just giddy. Guess you shouldn't drink so many mana portions if you ain't the wizard. Sorry. I accidentally stumbled into a girl wearing a kimono. She was shorter than me, and even though she was European, she had that Asian cuteness energy going on. Might as well have been the kimono though. We stood there and talked for a bit. I dare to say that kimono girl seemed to be interested in me. Before she got to make a move though, some dude came up to us. He stood next to her and struck a conversation with the intent of, very obviously, trying to hit on her. Which I found very funny because she was trying to hit on me at the same time. I think she was too polite to tell him to go away, so he stuck around and talked to her. I wasn't going to stand around and third wheel on that, so I decided to walk away. Then she suddenly grabbed onto my arm and tried to literally pull me back into the conversation. This is exactly the sort of socially awkward scenario you get when you put a bunch of nerds into a club. I stood there and I honestly really didn't want to contribute to the conversation because it was just him trying to talk to her and she was replying very sparsely. It was completely one-sided. That dude somehow couldn't read the mood at all and I was cringing a bit and I just wanted out of this conversation. If a 16-year-old is cringing at you, my dude, you gotta rethink your whole life. And after a while of this horrible public display of embarrassment, the kimono girl did something which I consider to this day as the greatest power move I've ever witnessed. Ha ha ha, blah blah blah, I'm a guy, I'm hitting on you. Ooh, ooh, ha, ooh. Oh my god. That was a move for the ages. While he was talking to her, she just turned around to me and kissed me. You can't get much more of a hint than that, right? Nah. He went like, okay, and kept trying to talk to her. That was a long story. Now let's go to the actual dating part, which is non-existent. You see, she kept on insisting on meeting for a coffee sometime. I wasn't too interested in dating anyone back then, but I gave her my number regardless and we started texting. Now, I'm not saying I didn't want to date anyone because I was such a playboy with so many girls. No, not at all. I was actually very lonely. But I said no to every date because I was a little shy nerd who didn't want to go out in public with someone I barely knew and then talk to a waiter in a restaurant or coffee or whatever and embarrass myself. I'm not like this anymore because I overcame that fear, but that is the reason why I didn't go on any real dates until I was almost 18. I remember when I was texting around with Kimono Girl, she mentioned her bachelor thesis at some point, and 16-year-old minor me was like, bachelor thesis? You mean for university? She said, yeah, I'm graduating in Japanese studies. Of course it's Japanese studies. You were wearing a damn kimono in a club, for God's sake. How old are you? 23. You? I'm 16. That was a big yikes! Look, I'm 23 right now and I could never date a 16-year-old. That's an age gap of 7 years. I mean, I got hit on by 30-somethings and 20-somethings when I was 16 and I didn't think much back then. But now, as someone in their 20s, I look back at that time and I'm like, ew. Anywho, she asked me out on a date regardless, and I was like, no. You're not dragging me out of my room. She was an adult in my eyes, and I wasn't going to embarrass myself in front of this adult. I mean, look at her adulting, writing her bachelor thesis, wanting to meet up for coffee, talking to waiters, and paying with money she earned at the job. No thanks, leave me alone. Yeah, I mean, I was kinda dumb for rejecting her due to that reason. Funny enough, clubs were completely fine with me, but I guess that's just because it's a different environment to be in. People always thought it was weird, but it actually has a very logical explanation to it. As a young kid, my mom would have those expectations of me to be perfectly able to communicate with people, because as a kid, I was fluent in German and Chinese, and my mom could only speak Chinese. My mom expected me to be perfectly able to communicate with waiters, cashiers, or even people at McDonald's. And I was an ultra shy kid. Talking to adult strangers was horrifying to me, and there was this one experience that just burned itself into my mind. I started my first year of middle school, and we flew back to China to visit our relatives in my summer vacation. We stopped in Dubai for a layover flight and we got hungry, so we found the next McDonald's to get some food. And the thing is, I was in no means fluent in English or even capable to talk with anyone in English. I did have straight A's, but first year middle school English had its limitations. She thought I learned enough English in school to be able to order food in English for us. But no, she made me do it anyways though. And I have never talked to anyone in English before, just saying. I was super terrified while making our order. I ordered the only thing of which I knew the name of. Two cheeseburger, please. Mom was pissed. She wanted a fish burger. At the end, she yelled at me in front of hundreds of people at this huge airport McDonald's for stuttering too much while ordering our food. I was 11 years old. This was the experience that made me determined to perfect my English. So I self-taught myself the language as best as I could, and I became fluent by 13. So take that, Mom. You made me learn a whole new language. Wait, that's not a bad thing. 20-something-year-old me now gets back to her for what she did by ordering something in English at airports with a few slight remarks of, why haven't you learned English yet? It's so easy. I did it by 13. Which never fails to make her angry. 10-year-old me would be so proud of 20-year-old me. Hell yeah. If you think her way of raising me was a bit too much, I completely agree with you. But I believe that Asian moms are just all slightly insane. And as an Asian kid, you learn to grow thicker skin, which is why we don't have wrinkles. I have mostly shaken off all those installed fears by now by slowly and always pushing myself out of this comfort zone to overcome this fear. Because if I didn't do that, I would still be that 11-year-old crying at the McDonald's in Dubai. So yeah, get out of your comfort zone, people, I guess. Next story. My first online dating experience. Over a year ago, when I was 17, almost 18, I tried online dating for the first time. Tinder wasn't a big thing yet, but there was a lot of ads for this new online dating website called Lavo. Lavo relied on a radar. On that radar, you can check who's close to you, click on one of those pink dots to open up their profile, and then just message them. There was this one person who had a black and white profile picture. When I tapped into it, it was this image of a very hot butch. I wrote her and I stayed up all night texting her. The thing is, that woman was 23 again. What's with me and that number? But I really didn't care about that. She was hot and I was girl crazy. And I was super excited because after texting back and forth for a while, she actually asked me out for a drink at a Christmas market. But remember, this video is about me being awkward as a teenager, so I bumped this date. It was awkward. Meeting up people from an online dating website for the first time is actually the scariest thing ever. Because your first date is also the first time you ever see them. You don't know their vibe, you don't know how they talk, and you don't know if this could get awkward. During the date, little 17-year-old me thought holding a conversation means making those interview questions of, what music do you like? Are you in school or working? What are your hobbies? Those questions are alright, but it contributes zero to a date if you can't do any follow-up to what you just asked. Cause you don't have any experiences in life, cause you're 17. Moving on. It was freezing cold, and I remember her keep asking me if I was cold, and I didn't want to be the one to complain, so I just lied and said I wasn't cold. She kept asking me if I was cold and hinting that she lived close by, but I was adamant. I was completely oblivious to the situation. I was like, I'm fine. It's not cold. You dumbass. You literal dumbass. And instead of telling her I was cold and then going with her to a more private and warm place, I decided to freeze my butt off and then go home. I was not a smart person. Naturally, I was crushing on her so hard after that one meeting because I was 17. What else do you expect to happen? She somehow decided to keep contacting me after that, and then she directly invited me over to her place for the next date. I was like, yes, heck yes, I'm down. So I came over to her place a week later. I went to her place and there were her and 2 of her roommates. One of them, and I'm sure they probably have a nice personality, but he looked like a rat. Everything from his face and body statue just reminded me of a rat. The night took a whole 180 when her rat roommate started talking about their previous hookup. And then they both got into way too much detail. I was like, I really didn't need to hear all this. No. At some point, the whole commune decided to go out partying, and the hot butch took me to her room, and damn! I've never seen such a clean room! It was like entering a showroom from IKEA. Yeah, by the way, I'm really strict with keeping my room tidy. Stop it, I can only get so turned on. I'm sorry, okay? Clean rooms really do it for me. I'm a Virgo. And later we went out with her roomies. I declined drinking for the whole evening. I don't even remember why. With 16 I was getting mana portion in clubs, but with 17 I refused to drink a shot with the hot butch. I make no sense. I think I was just getting annoyed with the whole group because they were so loud and I felt really out of place with them. So I decided to make up some excuse and left early. And we pretty much mutually ghosted each other after that. None of us have ever texted the other person after that night. Happy end. I'm one bad date away from becoming a crazy dog lady, I swear. Now, shout out to my Patreon Leslie Zamora and random shoutout winner HikariU. See you in the next episode.
This theater's a bit chilly. My hands are cold.
Here, my hands are warm.
Thanks. So, I'm your first guy.
I've only been with a woman before.
That's nice.
Please stop doing all this and just be genuine.
Okay, I understand.